Hello, today I'm here to bring you the mid-year freak-out tag. This has been going around BookTube. I haven't particularly been tagged by anyone, but I saw it going around and I thought I would give it a go. I think this is quite an interesting experience because a lot of people know I haven't had the best reading year this year, and going through the questions for this has really shown me how much I had become sort of distracted from my reading. Like I couldn't even think about the books that I had read so far this year, so I really need to get back to my reading. I don't think it helps that I'm not living next to my books anymore. I know that sounds strange, but I think it kind of takes your mind away from them, so I'm really missing my books. But anyway, I've been through my shelves. Some of these questions I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to have answers to, because it has been a terrible reading year so far, although it seems apt to have a mid-year freak out at the moment. So, you know, I'm doing it anyway. So I'm just going to get straight into it. The first question, I will be, as always, looking down here at the questions. The first question, the best book you've read so far in 2017. Now that is by far The Lonely City by Olivia Lang. This was an amazing non-fiction read about loneliness and the way artists use loneliness to reach out to the world, and also the psychology behind loneliness. It looks at the issue from a few different angles, and we also get Olivia Lang's own experience with loneliness and a period of her life where she was really lonely, and she turned to these people and these facts and these artists to make herself feel better, and it's just such an interesting read. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I have done an individual review of this, and I said in that it kind of put me in mind of Just Kids by Patti Smith, which is one of my all-time favourite books. So I really enjoyed the experience of reading this one. Number 2, the best sequel you've read so far. I have only read one sequel so far this year, and that is Where She Went by Gail Forman. That was part of my YA picks, and I was trying to get rid of it off of my shelf. It was okay. It wasn't my best, but I suppose by proxy it is the best because it was the only one I read. But I'm quite pleased that that's the only sequel I have read. I've made a video, which again I will link down below, about the fact that I really have gone off the idea of series and I just want to read standalone books, and I think all the books that I really enjoy are standalones. I very rarely enjoy a series or a sequel to a book, so I'm quite happy with the fact that that's the only one I've read, and that's kind of the only thing I want to do at the moment, is read the sequels that I already own and then probably not buy any more. So I haven't got a proper answer for that one, I am afraid. Number 3, a new release you haven't read yet but want to. Again, I don't have an answer for this one. I was trying to think of something, but in all honesty, this isn't because my reading has gone badly this year particularly, but I just generally don't pick up new releases. I tend to try and read the books on my shelf. I'm certainly not one of these people that will pre-order books or anticipate books, because I have enough books to be keeping me going at the moment, and even if I bought a new release straight away, I would probably not end up reading it until way into the future. So I'm not that bothered about new releases, and to be honest, I couldn't even tell you about the new releases of this year. I have not been keeping up with the bookish world the way that I usually do. Number 4, I also don't have an answer to, and that kind of ties into the first one, the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Again, the same applies. I do not anticipate books particularly. I have plenty to be going with. Number 5, the biggest disappointment you have read this year, and that is The Wound Up Bird Chronicle by Murakami. I had high hopes for this purely because, as I said about loving Just Kids by Patti Smith, Patti Smith, I know, had a really love relationship with this book, and also Amy Bender has spoken about how this book influenced her writing, so I kind of thought it was going to be this real creative revelation, and it wasn't really. Like, I really enjoyed it to start with. I think the first 100 pages I was kind of feeling it could be a 5-star for me, and then it just kind of petered out and it just got a bit repetitive and dragged on, and I just didn't really love it. I don't know that Murakami is particularly for me, if I'm honest, so that was that one. Then number 6 is the biggest surprise. Now for this one I'm going to say Sufficient Grace by Amy Espeseth. This was in the Moth box in I think March, and I really thoroughly enjoyed this book. It's interesting because from reading the back, it's not particularly one that I would pick up off of a shelf, even though it sounds intriguing. It's not something that I would have bought for myself, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. It's one of my standout books of the year so far. I think there was just so much richness in here, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Number 7 is your favourite new author. It can either be a debut author or an author that's new to me, and for this I'm going to say Olivia Lang. Sorry to repeat myself, but she is just phenomenal, and I had never read anything by her before. I have now put all of her previous books on my wish list, and I intend to devour her work completely. She is just really good, and if you haven't read her, I would recommend definitely reading her. Number 8 is a newest fictional crush. I do not get fictional crushes. Sometimes if I'm reading a really bad man who's kind of charismatic, I might crush on him a little bit, but I don't actually generally read books and get crushes on the people. I will generally be more inclined to get a crush on the author, so like my main like creative crushes are people like Jeanette Winterson and Annie Smith. I just those minds, I would just love to. Anyway, number 9 is your newest favourite character, and that's going to be Ryan from the Glorious Heresies. I've spoken before about reading this book and how it wasn't the most standout book for me, but I think Ryan's character was so interesting because it struck that really good balance of him being a bad person but also a sympathetic person. And the bad things just didn't even seem to matter, to me anyway, because he was just such a lovely person and he was so believable and well fleshed out, and he was definitely the standout point of that book for me, and he's a character that I will remember for a long time. Number 10, a book that made you cry. Now, I don't normally cry at books, but as I was thinking about this, I thought I did actually cry at my first ever book this year, and that was Here I Am by Jonathan Safran Foer. The book itself was okay, it didn't blow me away, but there's a scene at the end involving an animal and it just made me blub like a baby. I hate things like that. Anything with humans, you can be as gory as you want. It's not gory, by the way, it's not like an animal dies in a horrendous way. It's just really sad and touching. Number 11, a book that made you happy. Now, I don't read happy books. I just don't. I've tried to pick out a happy book from my shelf for a tag before. There was not one. Not one that I could talk to you about. However, I've taken this sort of in a literal sense to say that I'm going to say The Member of the Wedding by Carson McCullers because it made me happy. It's not the most particularly happy book. It's Carson McCullers, so obviously it's quite depressing. However, it made me happy because Carson McCullers' writing is just so phenomenal, and it made me remember why I love books and why I love writing, and I think that is the thing that makes me the happiest in the world. So this definitely applies for that one for me. Number 12, favourite book to movie adaptation you've seen this year. Not something that was released this year, but a few years ago I read A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, and I watched that this year, and the film was quite good. I think they did it well. It was a difficult one to transform into film, and I wouldn't have thought that it was the best pick for a book to movie adaptation in the first place, but I think they did it quite well. I definitely think they did the animation and stuff really well, and I think they got across the message without being too cheesy or over the top, which could have easily happened. So there was that one, and by proxy that will be my favourite because that's the only one I've watched. Then number 13, the favourite review you've written this year. To be honest, well, I'm taking video because I don't write reviews, I film them. To be honest, I think that it's between two. There is one that I did about Sufficient Grace by Amy Espeseth, which I was quite happy with, and there's also a review I did recently of The Knife Drawer, which I was quite happy with. I'll link both of those down below. It's difficult for me because I'm highly critical of myself, and so it's hard to pick out a review that I like, but those are two that I really did feel a sense of achievement at filming, and I think I got across the books quite nicely in them. So yeah, they're my favourites. Number 14, the most beautiful book you've bought or been given. So I'm doing two for this. I'm going to do the one I bought and the one I've been given. The most beautiful book that I have bought is The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. This is gorgeous, and need I say more? I'm sure you've seen it enough by now, but it's very pretty. And the favourite one I have received is a book that I was very kindly sent by Penguin out of their Penguin Essentials range, and that is Twilight by Ellie Wiesel. I am glad to have this because I've wanted to pick this up, and it's such a beautiful edition. I don't know if you can see properly. It's just so pretty. Number 15, the last question. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? I'm trying not to set myself TBRs too much, so I haven't got any specific books that I need to read by the end of the year, but I want to read a lot more books by the end of the year, and I'm hoping that my reading is going to really pick up for the second half. Fingers crossed. If you want to do this tag, feel free to do it. I know loads of people have done it already, so I'm not going to tag anyone, but if you do, let me know down below and I'll be sure to check that out, and I will see you next time. Bye!